Hi, it's me, Rasheed Ogunlaru, and welcome to the September issue of Catch the Coach, your newsletter for success and fulfillment. And here we are in September. This issue is all about going back to work, back to school, back to studies, back to business. This is such an important season in the year. It is a season that is synonymous with the harvest. It's a season that is synonymous with change. It's the season which is synonymous with things being refreshed or being renewed or going back into or trying to enhance things. It's the season of the year that, in terms of many things, is the most key season. When you are starting at school or education, it's the longest continual season, and where a lot of the academic study is crammed into. In terms of business, the final quarter of the year is often the one that is seen to be the most productive, and so it's a really, really important time of the year. And in terms of nature and so on, this would be the season in which we are gathering and we're accruing and we're harvesting the work that we've done throughout the year that's going to see us through not just the end of the autumn, the fall, but also in terms of the winter ahead. So it's a really, 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 really important part of life, a really important part of the year. It is, if you like, the business end of the stuff that we're doing. So this season is a really, really powerful time. It's a beautiful time. It's a time that you can see nature changing. You can see it in the trees, you can see it in the leaves, you can see it in the streets, you can see it in the countryside, wherever it is that you live. So this particular issue is very important as you head back to work, as you head back to school, as you start perhaps a new job, perhaps you're changing home. There may well be so many things that are changing. There may be changes that are going on for you personally. So in this issue, we're going to be looking at the new season. We're going to be looking at some tips and some news and events. We're going to be touching on going back to work. We're going to be touching on our tip for the month, which is all about energy. We're going to be talking about resources and resourcefulness. And we're going to be sharing, of course, our tip for the month and our quote for the month. Just first of all, we're going to start off with some very, very quick news and events. My Networking for Success event is run on the 20th of September and the 18th of October at the British Library. Perfect for you if you're trying to build your business or your career, or if you're feeling stuck. The details and link is underneath this website. The Precious Awards take place on the 21st of September. This celebrates women of colour in business and in the workplace. I know many of you have nominated yourselves and nominated others, and there are tickets available, and it is an inspiring evening. Again, a link to that is underneath this video. And if you're thinking about starting your own business, or are you in those early stages, the British Library, who I'm the business and life coach partner to, are running a very special business startup day on Thursday, the 21st of September also. So book that now. There's a free link. I think on paper it's, shouldn't really tell you this, but on paper I think it's almost full. But if you sign up and if you register and put yourself on the waiting list, and perhaps if you show up, you may well get in. Because, and you know what, in life, many people don't show up. They have a plan, but they don't plant the seeds. If you don't plant the seeds, what is it that you're going to be able to reap? So that's our news. And let's start off with this thing about the new season. I just want to ask you a few questions, and you might want to pause this, you might want to record it. How are you feeling about the season? What does this season mean to you? What's really important to you during this September-December season? What planning do you need to do? What advice do you need? What support and help do you have? And what support and help can you access? So that's the first thing. I really want you to just sit with the season and think about what it means to you and what it is that you're wanting to achieve. Because sometimes it is that we have our head full of things, but if you're able to just focus and think about, okay, between September and December, where am I? What planning, what support, what resources do I need to do? And how is it that I need to keep myself on track? Just as you did when you were at school. You had a plan for your studying, you would have a routine and so on. What's the degree of structure and shape that you need to do, but what's the degree of flexibility and so on that works for you? So that's in terms of the new season. Next up, back to work, back to business. How are you feeling about it? What's going well in terms of your business or in terms of your career? Are you enjoying it? Are you doing what you're passionate about? If you are, great, that's fine, fantastic. How can you work on what's really working well for you? How can you really enhance it? So that's my first question to you. If you're really enjoying what you're doing, how can you do even better at it? How can you use your strengths and the things that are really working well to develop it further? Sometimes we're always constantly focusing on the areas of weakness, but sometimes it might be that you can even deepen your strengths. So again, a farmer who's an expert in one particular crop doesn't necessarily need to focus on another crop if he really or she can really enhance working on the crop that works for them. Of course, sometimes we need to diversify, but it can be shrewd to start with your strengths. If you don't like your job, if you don't like your business, Do you really want to do it anymore? Do you want to change it? Do you want to tweak it? Do you want to diversify it? Do you need to expand it? What's going on? What's going on in neighbouring fields? It might well be that you need some help and advice or guidance and inspiration. Again, if you're stuck in any of these areas, get in touch with me. And there's lots of tools and resources and videos on this YouTube channel that will kind of help you in that, in terms of your career and getting the best out of your career. Yeah, but overall, just to sum that bit up, I want to get you to think about, okay, what is working, what's not working, how can you build on your strengths, what things need to be changing, do you need support? Again, this is where events like my Networking for Success and my Soul Trader event, the next one, which is coming up in December, might be really, really helpful to you. Okay, so that's getting back to business. Next up, starting afresh. So it might be that you're at a point where things are starting anew. Perhaps you might be starting new studies. I know somebody's just about to move home. It might well be that there's other things that are new. Maybe that there's other things going on. Maybe it is in terms of your health and your well-being. Perhaps there's new challenges, new things that you're doing. Maybe that I was with a very good contact of mine just yesterday, and she said herself and her family, they've just decided to go vegan because they watched something, it struck with them, touched their hearts, and they've all made changes. So is this something that you're starting fresh, or is this something that you're wanting to start fresh? So it might be to do with your life, your career, your business, your well-being. It might well be the case that there are changes that are going on for you and that you're having to start fresh, or you're having to look things in a new way. So this change and starting afresh might be a mindset. It might be a mindset of gratitude. It might be that you realise that you need to be cooperative. What is it that you feel that needs to be new or renewed? I want you to sit with that. Okay, what's next? My tip for the month is all about energy, space and pace, and I think this is so important. Whatever it is that you're wanting to do, whatever it is that is facing you, whatever it is that challenges that you've got to get through, all the things that you're wanting to reap, there are these things that are really important. Energy, space and pace. First of all, energy. Be mindful about your sleep. Be mindful about what it is that you eat. Be mindful about the exercise you need, because that's what you need in order to run this body that you have. Early in the year, I realised that I love my cakes and my sugar, and I realised, you know what, it's got to go. And so I cut cakes out, and I thought it was interesting because I thought it was going to be really, really difficult to do. It required consciousness and it required consistency. But what was interesting about it was it wasn't difficult. It just required attention. So I think that often when you're thinking about things and when you're thinking about changes, I think the important thing is your attention and the energy that you need to put in it. But of course, going back to energy, the first thing is that we need energy. So be mindful about your sleep, be mindful about eat, be mindful also about your exercise, and just start off by thinking about what simple changes could you make. It might be going to bed a little bit earlier. It might well be that just reducing the portion sizes of food, or just bringing a little bit more salad, or whatever it might well be. Some really simple things might have a very, very big impact for you. Also, I think in terms of this thing and in terms about energy, which moves us on nicely in terms of space, are you having the space and the time out that you need? So space. Are you spending the time in nature that you need? Have you got a clear space? Just as the season began and transition the season, I cleaned out the house, cleaned out the office space and so on, so that there's actual physical space. Because sometimes when you feel cluttered, your mind will feel cluttered. So physical clutter and emotional clutter, they're all interlinked. So you're having the space that you need. And also the last thing I want to say on this is actually pace. What's the pace that's right for you? I've been speaking this at quite a pace so far. But is it a case that what you're needing to do is slow down, reduce the amount of content, just be far more steady, be more consistent? And that's leading us beautifully toward the end of this newsletter. And the quote that I want to share, I'm about to paraphrase it. And it's a quote that I discovered fairly recently, and it's one that I absolutely love. And that quote is, it's a Bruce Lee quote, "In the long run, consistency trumps intensity. In the long run, consistency beats intensity." Because we need to be consistent, don't we? We need to be consistent in the things that we're planting, in what it is that we're addressing, what it is that we're doing, in order to get those results. So often I'm going to start this, I'm going to do this, and there isn't that kind of consistency to see you through, because you need to be consistent in your life, in your relationships, in your interactions with people, in terms of your effort, in terms of whatever it is that you're turning your attention to. It's that consistency that's important for you and the people that you're engaging with. And the last thing I want to leave you with is thinking about being resourceful and resourcefulness. Resources, life is rich with resources. We as human beings do funny kind of things with resources in terms of how we claim ownership of other resources, but life is actually rich with resources. I was chatting to my mum the other day, and there's this plum tree outside her house, and she was kind of complaining about how the plums are falling absolutely everywhere. And over the summer I was at my brother's house, and he's got this big apple tree in the garden, and there's I think there's a blackberry bush and so on. And if you look at the tree, there's so many apples that it produces every year. I make that point because actually sometimes we close our minds and we forget that life is actually rich with resources. There's the air we breathe, there's the trees, there's so much. But often we become very much like this, or we see life through a very, very narrow lens. We forget that life is very rich resources. Just think about when you eat a meal and think about all the kind of food waste and the other waste that we tend to get rid of at the end of every particular week. Most of us are very, very lucky that lack of resources isn't something that we encounter all the time. But the other side of resources is resourcefulness. And perhaps that's even more important. You're going to need to be resourceful. There'll be times where you'll be between jobs. There'll be times when the business isn't doing as financially well, where there may well be restructure or redundancy. There might well be those particular times where it is that you might need to tighten your belt. And that leads us beautifully back to this theme about this season, whereby we know that perhaps the winter may be far less rich in crops than it is the autumn. So we need to be very resourceful. We need to be aware of the times when there's plenty and when there's lack, in order that we can be mindful with our resources. So be resourceful, be mindful, take care, and I wish you all the best for the season ahead. Last thing I want to say and point you to is there's lots and lots of resources on my YouTube channel. On my Twitter channel, I'm at Rasheed Ogunlaru. Those of you who are on Instagram, I post tips and so on almost a daily basis, because I'm very, very passionate about sharing tips and tools with you. So there's lots of resources out there. There's the books, there's the audio, and there's the Coach Yourself video. There's lots of resources out there that are available to you. I just want to close this with thanking everybody who attends my workshops and my talks. I want to thank everybody who I've coached. I want to thank everybody on all the leadership programs that I'm doing at the NHS and elsewhere. I'm very, very grateful to you. I'm also inspired by the journeys that you're all going on as you all discover who it is that you are, and you're true to your heart, and you bring your magic into the world. I wish you all the best as you blossom and flourish. Thank you so much. Take good care. Bye-bye.